Hi, I'm Leonard Maltin, filling in this week for Robert Osborne while he takes some time off. Now, as a lot of you know, TCM reveres anything and everything involving the quest for film preservation. After all, we couldn't exist if someone wasn't out there ensuring cinematic treasures are preserved for posterity. One way TCM has done this is to spotlight the organizations and the people behind the scenes of film preservation. In the past, Robert Osborne has welcomed representatives from the Museum of Modern Art Film Archive in New York and the UCLA Film and Television Archives from Los Angeles. Well, for the next 24 hours, we're going to bring you films restored by the Library of Congress. And joining me to introduce 4 of those films is Patrick Lockney, the library's director of the Packard Campus for Audiovisual Conservation. Happy to have you here, Patrick.
Thank you, Leonard. It's good to be here.
It's really nice to have you here at TCM, away from your stomping ground in Culpeper, Virginia.
Yes, that's the home of the library's Packard Campus for Audiovisual Conservation. That's our new $200 million conservation facility that we opened in 2007.
And even more amazing is that not $1 of taxpayer money went into the construction.
It was actually designed and built for the Library of Congress by the Packard Humanities Institute, and it's one of the great gifts to the nation from a private citizen to the American people.
David Packard has done an awful lot for film lovers.
He has. He's been very quiet about it, but he's been one of the major supporters of film preservation for many decades in the U.S. I think he's done more for film preservation than any single individual or institution in the last 25 years.
Now, I know that in addition to storing, preserving, taking care of, tending these films, you even have your own laboratory now.
That's right. We have a fully equipped film preservation laboratory with the latest digital as well as analog facilities needed to do the archaeology of American cinema. As you well know, so much has been lost, and the endeavor now is to search not only the hidden places in the U.S., but foreign archives around the world to locate and identify film fragments and missing pieces and bring them back so that they can be reassembled into restored films as much as possible.
Well, the film we're about to see, The Constant Nymph, is a particularly exciting restoration because the film has been out of circulation for decades, right?
That's right. The rights reverted back to the estate of the author, Margaret Kennedy, in 1951, and since that time it has been publicly unavailable.
I think it had its re-premiere at the TCM Classic Film Festival.
That's correct, yes.
Very exciting, too. I remember how I got to see it many years ago is that at the UCLA Film Archive, where they had the Warner Brothers nitrate film collection, nitrate being very delicate, of course, but they allowed me to watch it on what's called a flatbed viewer, which meant you could only sort of thread up one reel at a time. You had to have somebody there watching very carefully in case anything should set off a spark and
yes.
set it on fire.
Yeah.
But it was worth it to get to see this movie.
Well, hopefully people will now see it in something that constitutes something of the theatrical experience where you're not interrupting at every reel just to...
Yes.
But this is preserved from the original camera negative, picture negative, and the track negative, which are still in good condition.
And those components were part of the library's collection?
Yes, they came into the collection many decades ago and, again, was preserved, but not publicly available because the rights had not been cleared.
So here's a film that existed all along, was not lost, as
right.
some people like to say. It just couldn't be shown.
That's correct.
I know a lot of people are really happy that this film has finally emerged into the light after so many years of dormancy.
So this film is of great interest to cinephiles, but also to the musicologists in the United States because of the great score by Erich Wolfgang Korngold, which has been unavailable with the film for many decades. So it's a rediscovery on many levels.
Well, now we'll hear that music in the context of the film for which it was composed. And about time, right?
Right.
Okay, it's time for the movie starring Charles Boyer and Joan Fontaine in a performance that earned her her 3rd Academy Award nomination. It co-stars Alexis Smith, Peter Lorre, and Charles Coburn, all under the direction of Edmund Goulding. So now here, finally, is The Constant Nymph. What a lovely film. I'm Leonard Maltin, back again for the vacationing Robert Osborne. And I'm here with TCM guest Patrick Lockney, the director of the Packard Campus for Audiovisual Conservation, the division of the Library of Congress, responsible for restoring the film we just saw. Welcome back, Pat.
Thank you.
Isn't that a lovely film?
It's marvelous. It's a film that, in the great high style of Hollywood, that's a film I rarely use this phrase, but I don't think they can make that kind of film again.
Well, it's so romantic, in the grandest sense of that word, romantic.
Yes, it is. And it's played with such heart by all the cast, and the directorial hand is so steady that it's like a fine china bowl. It's a piece of art in and of itself.
Joan Fontaine, I think, has said on more than one occasion that this was her favorite film.
That's what I understand. But she gives such a great performance, and it's of course, it's in the style of older actresses playing young girls, but in this case, it works.
You know, in those early scenes where she's supposed to be a gangly teenager,
yes.
you kind of believe her.
Yes.
I'm amused by the fact that in real life, she was 4 years older than Alexis Smith, who was only 22. Alexis Smith always played mature women, it seems.
Yes.
She had that bearing about her, or either that or they just typecast her that way.
Yes.
Now, what gives you the greatest pleasure, when you've restored a film like this or when you actually get to show it to somebody?
Well, for me, working at the library, it's working with some wonderful colleagues who really are the first to discover these films. Mm-hmm. When they open the can, they start putting these films on the inspection benches and going through, looking at the film as an artifact, but so knowledgeable about film history that they immediately recognize the importance of these films or know the background, and they make recommendations about what should be preserved. And so this is a film that has had a good lore among the library staff as a film that's been publicly unavailable, featuring great performances by important actors, and also knowing that there's a great group of film cinephiles who've been waiting for this film for many years, as well as the musicologists. So it's a great sense of satisfaction for not just me personally, but for the library staff to be able to bring these back so people can see these films again.
Absolutely. We have to give proper credit to the folks and the legal eagles at TCM.
Oh, yes.
For clearing those rights, which were tangled up for a long, long time.
I agree.
Well, let's move on now, Pat. Do stay with us, because our salute to the Library of Congress Film Archive continues with my guest, Patrick Lockney, who'll be back to help me introduce a real gem starring the great Barbara Stanwyck.